Hello, BookTube. Well, I have mail. One package. I have one measly little package that came in the mail. It's from a publisher, so I don't think it's from you, and it's just a single book, but it could be something good. It could be a finished copy. I'm pretty sure there won't be any mail on Sunday. There won't be any mail on Monday because Monday is a holiday here in Boston. But oh, okay, great. Oh well, fantastic. All right, I didn't actually expect this. I didn't expect to get a finished copy of this. This is right in the month of June, when I'm just assuming I made my June shelf of review copies out in another room, and I organized it week by week and prettied it up and made it look nice and everything. And I looked at it; it's almost all review copies. And I looked at that shelf of June, and I thought, oh, you're not going to get finished copies of any of these. Ordinarily, that was the process: is that I would get a whole shelf of review copies, and then gradually, as the finished copies came in, I would swap them out and pull out the advanced copies and put the finished copy right there, because I'm a reviewer. And reviewers like to work from finished copies. You have all the appurtenances that, especially in nonfiction, make the difference between an easy review and a hard review. Is if you've got an index and a bibliography and maps and whatnot that you don't have in an advanced copy, that makes all the difference in the world. But also because if I like a book, of course I want a nice, pretty finished copy. Uh, and I noticed when I made June that I have only a couple of finished copies out of 50 books, and that I don't expect to get any unless things drastically change. I expect that will not happen, and this is one of them. But this is actually a finished copy. Fantastic. We saw this when I first got it. This is An Ocean Without a Shore by Scott Spencer, a really, really, really good author of contemporary fiction, whose sort of working presence in the reading world received a bit of a body blow because he was the author of a book called Endless Love, which is fantastic. It is fantastic. But then the book fell under the shadow a bit of the Brooke Shields movie and the song. There was a song. Was it Diana Ross? It was Endless Love that was the song. And I don't know. Every reader of a certain age, every serious reader of contemporary American fiction that I ever talk to, if I just meet them or if I've known them for a long time and I mention the novel Endless Love, they immediately start humming that song or talking about that movie. And that is not fair. That's just not fair to the author. And Endless Love is a really, really good book. And this author has never written a bad book. He's never written a weak novel. This is a new novel coming out. I guess it's still scheduled for June because the finished copy is right on schedule. I'll have to check that, and so should you. If you're interested, you might want to check that online. But let me read you about this because we haven't seen this in a while. I don't have a sell sheet for it, but let's see here. An Ocean Without a Shore, from best-selling, critically acclaimed author of Endless Love and Man in the Woods, is a beautifully rendered exploration of that most timeless of human dilemmas, one in which your love is left unreturned. This author is particularly good about love. And you might think, oh my God, isn't every single novel ever written about love? And you might be right that 99% of them are, but most of them are terrible about love. Most of them are terrible. I read most contemporary fiction or 20th century fiction that purports to be about love, and I feel the same way as Judi Dench's Queen Elizabeth I does in Shakespeare in Love. I'm sick of these maunderings of poets. Show me love as it actually is. And I want to ask that question without her dress or makeup every time I finish such a book, but not with this author. He's really good with it. Him and Andrew Holleran are really good. But anyway, since their college days, Kip Woods has been infatuated with Thaddeus Kaufman, who years later is now a married father of 2 children and desperately trying to revive a failing career. Kip's devotion to Thaddeus has been life-defining and destiny-altering, but it has been one that Thaddeus has either failed to notice or refused to acknowledge. Over the course of this heated and mesmerizing novel, set against a background of privilege and affluence in Manhattan and the Hudson Valley, Kip is forced to reckon with the person of his own making and to decide how much he's willing to sacrifice for a love that may never be shared. Picking up where his most recent novel, River Under the Road, left off, but writing squarely in the vein of Endless Love, his classic novel of passion and obsession, Scott Spencer gives us an intimate, immersive, and unsettling portrait of the devastation we will wreak in the name of love, and the bitterness of a friendship ravaged by fathomless yearning. And all that does sound like author faffing, but that is actually this author's wheelhouse. those kinds of things that can be so syrupy and formless, they can just slip all over the counter like a squid. This author gets them. He knows how to write about them really well, and that is rare. I might also nominate Jim Kirkwood, but I know nobody reads him anymore. Unfortunately, nobody reads him anymore. So, but Scott Spencer people still do read. It's good. I haven't read this yet. I have the advanced copy, and a part of me still hasn't adjusted to 2020 and is just waiting for finished copies as sort of a starting bell, and that is wrong. That is completely wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if the book world as 2020 goes on, just dispenses with advanced reading copies altogether, where it's just e-galleys and that's all, and where no reviewer gets any finished copies. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. I would be sad if they did, and I hope they don't. I mean, it's a little bit roundabout, but most book reviewers are not very well paid. most of them are not very well compensated. At the very least, give them a library. For the work that they're doing, but one way or another, we shall see. I wasn't expecting to get this at all, so now, of course, my hopes are up. I have a stack of Oxford trade paperback review copies, for instance, for June. I'd like finished copies of all of those, that's for sure, and plenty of other stuff in June. Well, anyway, actually, that reminds me that I haven't done any kind of a look forward to June on this channel. I'll have to do that. Today is... I don't even remember, the 23rd of May, something like that. So we're right around the time where we can look ahead to June. I'll have to remember to do that, and you'll see what I mean. But in the meantime, I'm looking forward to this. I'll read it tonight. This is an author who has... we have blurbs on the back. Joshua Ferris blurbed it, and he is great. I think he's fantastic. Francine Prose blurbed this. She's often very good. Emma Klein has no talent whatsoever and still blurbed this. Michael Cunningham, often very talented, blurbed this. And Mary Gateskill, who I recognize has talent, but Mary Gateskill's talent has never registered with me. So that's not bad as a roster of blurbs. That's fantastic. All right, well, I will read this tonight then. So it's one book only, but it's not a dud. It's of interest, and it's of immediate interest because it's coming right up. So there you go. So this is a perfect case in miniature of how my mail is also my TBR. I will read. I have a couple of other things that are kind of on the agenda for tonight, but this will bump one of them and be what awaits me at the stroke of midnight when I turn into a pumpkin and turn off the whole world in order to read. So there you go. That is your mail haul. Not very long, one book, but a winner of a book, winner of an author, has an endless amount of goodwill with me. He's never written a book that I didn't like. And that is great. That is fantastic. I talk about that all the time, how authors have an escrow account of goodwill, and they either add into it or they draw off from it, and starting right with their first book. I give every author an enormous escrow account of goodwill for their debut novel, and what they do with it is entirely up to them. So if at the end of the debut novel, if I think, okay, well, that was lazy and self-indulgent and unstructured and arrogant all at the same time, then their balance goes almost to zero. But if the debut novel does some things, tries some things, is interesting in some ways, then they barrel on to their second book, and then their third, and then their fourth. And after a while, after 3 or 4 books that I have enjoyed, I don't worry about the balance anymore. An author would have to seriously go downhill or lose their marbles. Like, for instance, by the time John Barth had written his great big book, Letters, his account with me was about as high as you can go. It was just, I was stunned by how great a writer he is. And then he just kept writing and writing, and the books got worse and worse and worse, more and more formless and self-indulgent as they went along. This is an author who wrote The Saltweed Factor, one of the great novels of the 20th century, who now, in his bibliography for all time, has a novel with 3 exclamation points in the title. And when his editor said, can we remove all the exclamation points or maybe have it just be one, the author, out of his mind and 150 years old, said, no, I want all 3. So there's a perfect, it can go either way, but usually if an author has 3 or 4 books to their credit, then I don't worry anymore. And Scott Spencer is one of those authors. I don't really worry that I'm not going to like this book. Instead, very restfully, all of those kinds of questions will be off the table. Instead, I won't be watching really to think, okay, are you going to forget this character? this character in chapter 3 who's being given lavish amounts of attention. Are you going to forget this character even exists in chapter 33? I'm not going to have to be on guard for that sort of thing. Those sorts of things probably won't happen. Instead, refreshingly, I can just pay attention to what the author is trying to say, what the novel is trying to do. It's wonderfully clarifying when an author gets to that point. So, so there you go. Good. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. That was a quick mail haul, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.